about the New International Version of the King James Bible. I speak as support of the King James Bible. Versus, the ad says VS, versus. That means against. That means I'm against the King James Bible. No, that means I'm against the NIV. Now, you can tell much about a man, but what he's against, what he's for. I believe in the power of negative thinking. And I believe in a man, if he's not against something, he'll fall for anything. So I speak as a man who believes the King James Bible is the Word of God from cover to cover and through to cover. I'll show you why I am not favorably disposed toward the NIV. My brother's connected with it, that's fine, that's his business. America, it's a free country, help yourself. Here's why, and I'll come to my first point. If you have a Bible, open your Bible to Mark chapter 1, Matthew chapter 5. Mark chapter 1, Matthew chapter 5. My first reason for rejecting the NIV as a reliable translation is because it hints somewhat broadly that the writer of the Bible is a liar. Mark chapter 1 in one hand, Matthew chapter 5 in the other, and your third hand, pick up Hebrews chapter 3. Now, I'll be reading tonight only from the NIV. I've had a copy on me for many years. I use 26 different translations. I believe one.
Amen.
All right. I'm reading first of all from Matthew chapter 5 in a New International Version, verse 22. But I tell you, anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to his brother, Verja, is answered with Sanhedrin. But anyone who says to him, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Now the verse says here, I have taken anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. I call your attention to the fact that Jesus Christ was angry with his brothers. He came to his own, he's a Jew. His brethren were Jews. I call your attention to the fact one time they got so mad at him, went to the temple and got a scourge, not a scourge, and whipped him and beat him. He got real upset with him. Matter of fact, in Mark, the Bible says he looked around and being angry and grieved for the hardness of heart, told that fellow to stretch forth his hand and be healed. So Christ was angry with folks. The NIV says anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. That isn't true in the case of Christ. So your King James Bible says whoever is angry with his brother without a cause. Is that what you have there? Look at your Bible. You got a Bible there in your lap? I hope you bought a Bible tonight. You don't hear a discussion about two versions. You don't have either version. You're going to get yourself in a flat-footed mess. That thing there says whoever hates his brother without a cause, or angry with his brother without a cause. That's IK in the Greek. I'll give the manuscript evidence on it later. There's plenty of it. All right, Mark chapter 1. Mark chapter 1. Mark chapter 1. Mark chapter 1, verse 2. I'm reading from NIV. Mark 1, 2 is written in Isaiah the prophet. I will send my messenger ahead of you who will prepare your way. A voice of one calling in the desert, prepare the way for the Lord and make straight paths for him. Unquote. That isn't from Isaiah the prophet. That's from Isaiah and Malachi. There are two prophets being quoted there. Malachi chapter 3, verse 1, Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3. This version here says, it is written in Isaiah the prophet. It isn't anything of the kind. That's falsification. That isn't written anywhere in Isaiah the prophet. You couldn't find that in Isaiah the prophet with a flashlight and a laser beam. It's written in Isaiah and Malachi. What does your King James say? That was written in what? Prophets. What? What? Again. Again. Louder. That's the truth. Why accept a Bible that isn't true when you got one that is true? Hebrews chapter 3. Hebrews chapter 3. It's going to be a long night, folks. Hebrews chapter 3, verse 16. Now, I'll try to behave myself like a gentleman. It's not that strong as suits. I'm a much better hockey goalie than I am a gentleman. All right, Hebrews chapter 3, verse 16. I'm reading Hebrews 3:16. NIV. Who were they who heard and rebelled? Were they not all those Moses led out of Egypt? No, as a matter of fact, it wasn't. Your King James Bible says it wasn't. Read your King James Bible. Doesn't say, howbeit not all those that came out of Egypt. Yeah. This verse here says all those that came out of Egypt. Well, it wasn't. Come back to Deuteronomy. Let's see if it was. Let's see if all those that came out of Egypt were involved with that bunch. They most certainly were not. With Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 30 in one hand, and Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 1 in the other. Now, this is the reason why we reject some of these new translations of what we call reliable versions. I suppose I thought it was according to my callous for Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. That's the standard one that came from Luther that wound up that way. Like you have Theodosius in Italian, like you have Luther in the French, and Viceroy in the Balkans, and Elizabethan Bible in Russian. There may be reliable translations, but this won't be one of them. All right, get Deuteronomy chapter 1 in one hand, get Deuteronomy chapter 29 in the other, and see what Moses said to his people after the 40 years of wandering over. After the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness were all over, and they got to the promised land, they were by Jordan about to cross over, and all the men of war had been wasted away that rebelled. Look what he says in his congregation. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 30. And I'll begin at verse 29. Then I said to you, be not terrified, do not be afraid of them. The Lord your God who is going before you will fight for you as he did for you in Egypt, before your very eyes. That bunch did not waste away. They came out of Egypt. They were right there. And they saw what God did in Egypt before they left. One more time, Deuteronomy chapter 29. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 2. Moses summoned all the Israelites and said to them, your eyes are right there after 40 years wandering. Your eyes have seen all the Lord did in Egypt to Pharaoh, to all his officials, and to all his land. With your own eyes, you saw those great crowds. Then not all those that came out of Egypt did rebel. A lot of them came out of Egypt, saw the thing, and got through, and lived across into the promised land. Now, why would I take a version as reliable? But fools lie with the Word of God like that. You say, well, doesn't that reading match the ASV, New ASV Living Bible? Yes, it matches all the garbage. Amen. And that's why we don't take them as reliable translations. Now, IK, and I'll close here with this session. IK, the word for what a modern Greek would say, EQ. The modern Greek doesn't pronounce it like classical authority anyway. He pronounces the epsilon as E and the L as E and the upsilon with E and everything else. But the IK there, so epsilon, the old kappa, eta, that thing is found missing from two manuscripts, which we'll talk about a great deal tonight. Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, signifying the Aleph and Beta. That quotation without a cause is found in Irenaeus and Origen more than 100 years before the manuscripts that Nessels, Allen, and Metzger used for their text for the NIV. And the NIV introduction does say they use that text. It's found IK without a cause. It's found in the Old Latin, the Old Syriac, every until but two. It's found in the Gothic translation, the Armenian translation, the Syrian, the Latin, and the Coptic, and it's quoted in Mutation Diatest 180 AD. You have a reading in the King James Bible, angry with his brother without a cause, that is found in 180 AD. That's more than 200 years, well, roughly 150 years, more than 150 years before the two oldest manuscripts were written that omit the word. And it's been omitted here. All right, that's all I have. Yeah. Please. All right, if you have a Bible, let's turn to Acts chapter 4, verse 27. Acts chapter 4, 27. Now, I'm talking to you about why I personally, on personal taste, free country, I'm no demagogue or dictator, buy the Bible you want, buy it's your money. I'm an American. But I'm talking about why I would never accept the New International Version as a reliable translation. Acts chapter 4, verse 27. Acts chapter 4, 27. Now here we have a passage where the Lord Jesus Christ is mentioned in the same context with David. We read in Acts 4:27, Herod and Pontius Pilate met together with the Gentiles, the people of Israel in this city, to conspire against your holy servant Jesus, whom you anointed. Notice David in the two verses before this is called a servant. Verse 25, you're a servant, David. Now the NIV in verse 27 says your holy servant, Jesus. What did yours say?
Little child.
Child. Your version emphasized the deity of Christ. Here, for some strange reason or other, we have the child eliminated, and we have servant. This is Greek. Heights. And that word was translated uniformly in the NIV, then of course you'd find every time that word showed up, you would find servant. However, in the NIV, which I have here at the table, in Luke 2:43, that word is not translated as servant. It's translated as boy. As a matter of fact, in Luke 9:42 in the NIV, that word is not translated as servant, it's translated as boy. The time it's translated as servant is where it was possible to take away the deity of Christ. I don't know if I particularly care to invest in a thing like that. Take your Bible and turn to 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. 2 Timothy 2:15. 2 Timothy 2:15. 2 Timothy 2:15. Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a workman who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. There's no command in this book to study the Bible. As a matter of fact, there's only one commandment in the New Testament to study the Bible. It's 2 Timothy 2:15. You can't find a place else where it says study. With this Bible, you've lost that. With this Bible, there's no command to study the Bible at all in the New Testament. The verse doesn't say that. It says, do your best to present yourself to God. Never mind the studying. Who correctly handles the word of truth. You have a problem here, the word handle. These fellows make a great deal about the Greek. So when somebody write it up, you see it. This is off of the mótsatt. Off of the mótsatt, there is omicron and so on. And the last part of this thing here, after the ortho, is from this word here, henni, which means to cut straight. To cut straight. Hence the reading we have to rightly divide the word of truth is the correct reading no matter what Greek text you go by. Whether it's an RV Greek text or a sentence. Now here's the next thing. Here's this constant talk about get it updated where somebody can understand it, get it put in modern language where somebody can get it. But the truth of the matter is there have been 90 updatings of that book since 1980. I can remember 73 of them, so I wrote down 73 of them. Now this is how many times somebody has gone up and said it needs to be updated. 73 times. You ought to believe that the English language goes completely out of style every other year. Come on, folks, where's your sense of humor? See that stuff? Every man on that list said the King James is archaic and needs to be updated. But 73 cotton-picking times. What? You mean to tell me that Word of God gets completely archaic every 2 years? If it did, why are they telling you now that the King James Bible you have now is a 1793 edition? If it was, you'd have a Bible that was good for almost 200 years without any updating. When you're a pastor, this dumb thump here, this fellow here, he used the book that's 200 years old, and he missed 73 updating. Folks, who's trying to kid who, well? You talk about that book gets out of date every 2 years. How come Fenton didn't compare himself? How come Amplified didn't compare himself with the New English Bible and compare himself with Tory and him with Concord and him with somebody else? How come they always compare themselves with King James? I think the King James Bible is the only book around. There are all these fellows coming along here, and I've missed over half of them, and each one coming out says, we're updating it. You're updating it. 73 people got to you before you ever picked it up. Here's an NIV coming out here in 1978. Here's a 1974 the NIV, and both of them came out knowing it had been updated. The RV, the RSV, the ASV, the new ASV, they knew that. They knew it had been updated over and over and over and over again, and this year won't be out before somebody will decide it needs to be updated again. Right. Yeah. Now, I couldn't remember. Well, I've only got you 73 in there. They're 90. They're 90 since 1890. They're telling you the Bible gets out of date, needs to be updated every year. I don't believe it. Bob Jones Sr. founded his school in the King James Bible 200 years out of date. Lee Robertson put up his school in the King James Bible 200 years out of date. The souls that Dwight L. Moody won to Christ, he won to Christ with the Bible over 100 years out of date. The souls that Billy Sunday won to Christ, he won with the Bible over 100 years out of date. Well, all this bunk was going on, they just didn't pay attention to it.
Amen. Amen.
I'm going to stop here in this section here. Before I stop, I want to set the pace for the next section, and that's this. This is a letter from the International Bible Version Committee by Kenneth L. Barker, International Bible Society. Dear Reverend Kincaid, those are two booklets. We literally used all Greek manuscripts in our translation of the New Testament. Vaticanus, Sinaiticus. Strange enough, when they printed the book and came out with a book, they wouldn't tell you what the manuscripts were. When they printed this book for sale, this book showed up at the bookstore, got to Mark 15, it said, the two most reliable early manuscripts do not have Mark 16, but didn't tell you what they were. I know what they were. The fellow told me in the letter.
That's right.
He just didn't put it in the book.
That's right. Amen.
You sell books.
Amen.
You don't sell letters.
That's right. Amen.
Sinaiticus, Vaticanus, Alexandrinus, Textus Receptus. In a relatively few places where these texts differ, 16 vowels. Well, in a few places, 16 vowels. Which can be done in court, postures, codex, being allies. In the relative few places where these texts disagree, we evaluated the evidence and reached our own decision as to what appeared to be the original reading. Most of the time, we'll close with this, we found ourselves agreeing with the United Bible Societies and Nestle printed text. Fortunately, I just happen to have a copy on me tonight. I've taught Nestle Greek text in our school for 18 years. Nestle's printed text of the Greek New Testament. Next time I get it, we'll see what's behind the Greek text for the New International Version. My first point is this. I don't accept it as reliable because it makes a lie out of God in at least 3 places, and there's probably some more. Number 2, I don't accept it as the Word of God because its basic underlying Greek text is a faulty text. Verse 27. Was it only your master, if you, my master, said me to say these things, and not to men sitting in the wall, who like you will have to eat their own filth and drink their own urine? Now the point here is, I suppose was, is the King James a little bit too crude? Isn't this better? I guess that's the point. Now, I'll tell you, maybe this age has my esteemed colleague fooled. He doesn't have me fooled. Amen. You ain't going to get too crude for this age.
Amen.
You folks I'm looking at right now, you have seen pornographic stuff in your living room.
Amen.
That you couldn't have got downtown and bought for money 50 years ago that act of Congress.
Amen. Right.
You folks see the people killed, blood and guts all over your living room, heads flying, helicopters exploding, motorcycles going off the cliff, people screaming, rats eating babies. You've seen that whole stuff now for 10 years. Don't tell me that, you're refined.
Yeah.
Oh, I got it all. The brother also forgot something. He said he hadn't heard it read from the pulpit. Why should all the Bible be read from the pulpit? Where'd you get that from? Well, the Bible's for private reading.
Amen.
This idea that the Bible should be confined to a pulpit, that's nonsense. Ezekiel 16 is private reading. So Ezekiel 32. I don't recall a great deal of Song of Solomon ever being teach or preached. All that stuff's private reading. That isn't all. Yet you read an extremely difficult passage over there in Job that had to do with the rapture. And his remark was, since you couldn't understand what you read, there must be something wrong with the book you had because it should say something to this generation. My answer to you and those lines is very simple. The Bible doesn't have to say anything except what it wants to say when it wants to say it.
Amen.
And there's no man in this building or in this state or on this platform who could explain all the verses in the Bible.
That's right.
I could pull some on the brother right over there now. If he could explain them, he might pass himself. He wouldn't pass me. I just finished a book on the Minor Prophets about 3 years ago, and I didn't finish it. People always ask me, when are you going to finish your book of the minor prophets? I said, not till I understand them. I got the Zechariah and Bog now. When I got to the four carpenters, come to play the four horns and the four horsemen, and the myrtle and the grizzled bay and the bottom of the myrtle trees, I quit, man. You know, these fellas have you think? Then have you think if you just took that thing and dressed that up enough so it spoke to them, it'll speak to you and that'll be the truth. That isn't anything. That's just changing what God has said to suit yourself. That doesn't accomplish a thing. All right, now, let me put one on you. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. You understand that verse? Well, you believe it. Do you understand it? I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. You really understand the verse, do you? How about this one here? We know all things work together for good, all things. Haven't you ever felt in your life sometime that if God knew as much about it as you knew about it, He wouldn't handle it like He handled it? I mean, the very idea of saying that everything there has to say something you'd understand to be the right kind of Bible, that's nonsense.
Amen.
Now, there's something else. My learned colleague pulled a fast one on you there. He pulled a fast one there, and Hugh Broken's famous statement about it crosses me, and tried to make you think this. He tried to make you think that the criticisms of the King James Bible, like Hugh Broken and others have, are equivalent to the criticisms I'm now making about the New International Version. Now, the fast shuffle through there. Pull out the Geneva Bible here, 1760, brought up by the Puritans. Mentioned John Cotton, the 5-4 Calvinist who burned witches at the stake. I don't know if that's my true account. All right, you take that Geneva Bible, pull out here, and the idea was if the Geneva was used before the King James, and took one off the King James and replaced it, you are to assume that since we object to this one, it'll take time for this to replace this one, that this one will replace this one. Now, you know what's wrong with that reasoning? These are not the same line of Bibles. The critics of these Bibles are not the critics of these Bibles.
Right.
The supporters of these Bibles are not the supporters of these Bibles.
That's right.
These Bibles constitute a chain. These Bibles constitute a chain.
That's right.
They're not the same chain. They're not from the same sources. They don't have the same supporters. They don't have the same opponents. Therefore, to use this thing as a historical illustration of what's going on over here is a false comparison. Well, the King James translator is going to make a good translation better. They're talking about this series. They're not talking about one book in that series, because those aren't good translations. What he did was take the criticism and support over here and put it over here. You want to get those two lines distinct. We'll talk about them more later. All right, I'm going to close as quick as I can briefly by saying just one or two things. And our brother says that I have been given the principles of textual criticism or apply the method correctly. I would like to have heard him give us his. Since I stick with one that found in every textbook in the United States, I'd like to hear his. It must be quite unique. Well, as I quoted you about the long reading and the short reading, I found any book on textual criticism fit of anybody, including the faculty that taught him. But if he has some new stuff I don't know about, I'd like to hear them. I'd like to have them given to me. I think I'd have to give them to you. All right, now this one here. I can just hold this one up. Okay. These are the reasons why I do not accept. You can help yourself. Free country. I'm in favor of that. I have to. I do not accept the NIV because of the motive for publishing. The motive for publishing was supposed to update something that had been done 73 times before. Number 2, attacks against the veracity of God, which I gave you 3 examples which weren't discussed. Number 3, the wrong Greek text for the foundation. The Greek text used for that foundation is called an Alexandrian text. It comes from Alexander, Egypt. It's called that in Nessels. It's called that in Messer. They come from Egypt. What's Egypt a type of in the world, folks? Yeah. What's Egypt in the Bible? It's the world. Who would go down there looking at the manuscripts? Not one New Testament writer wrote anything in Egypt. Egypt contains no original autographs of anybody. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, James, Jude, Paul, none of them wrote from there. Why did you look there? The disciples were first called Christians at where? That's in Syria.
Amen.
The Syrian Byzantine text that comes right up through there in your King James Bible. Those are two separate lines of Bibles, two separate lines of text that bear two separate kinds of fruit. These here are Alexandria. They're Africa. They go from there to Rome. They produce Mexico, Spain, South Ireland, and Italy. By their fruits you shall know them. I reject the NIV because they refuse to translate the Greek manuscripts they recommend. They did not publish the Apocrypha as part of the Old Testament, even though they knew it was in the manuscripts they used. I reject it because they practiced all the things they said were wrong when they authorized murder. Now, we didn't have time to go on that, but I had a nice little list over there. It started me so, translated 6 different ways, while complaining about the King James translating Pascha as Pascha as Easter. I have some nice little goodies over there on Pornaya, translated 5 different ways, after complaining about the lack of uniform translation of the King James, some other things. In closing, Psalm 12 says, the Lord are purified, tried in the furnace of earth 7 times. Thou wilt keep not preserved in this generation and henceforth forever. You'll not find that in the NIV. The NIV doesn't say that God preserved His words at all. The NIV in Psalm chapter 12 turns that verse around, so the preservation has nothing to do with what God said. By a copy and read it. There are 7 languages that book shows up in. Hebrew, Old Testament, Aramaic, portion of the Old Testament, Northern Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7. Greek New Testament, the first major translation is Old Syriac, Old Latin, German Reformation, English. 7 times. When the world is a Greek-speaking world, you have a Greek receptus. When the world is a Latin-speaking world, you have a Latin receptus. When the Reformation comes to Germany, you have a German receptus. When the Bible goes to the moon, you have an English receptus. 7 times. 7 times. Thou wilt keep them from this generation and preserve them henceforth forever. Amen. The antecedent of this generation in Psalm 12 is the 7th time they're purified. Amen. One little nugget to close with. Adolf Hitler has an ID card. It's an Austrian. The Nazi Party is an Austrian party, not a German party. Comes out of Austria. I got a photograph of Adolf sitting in his first Nazi party, and I've got his ID card. His ID card has a funny number on it. It's 555. 5 in that book is the number of death from Adam right on through. Chapter 5, they die. I mean, the order is 5 for 5 when they get killed. Christ has 5 pieces of clothes and 5 holding it. You know what 666 is, don't you? 666? You know what that is, don't you? Yeah. You know what completion is, don't you? 777? You know what new is in the Bible, don't you? 8's the number of something new. You know what you got? God's got a computer system working out. These are European conquerors. Winding up, Christ taking over, new heavens and new earth, and since there are 9 fruits of the Spirit, and the woman's gestation period is 9 months, and Abraham's 99, his wife is 90 when they get fruit of life from the dead. 999, it's perfect fruit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 1, and 1, and 1. And 6. And guess what? Heaven and earth. Watch it. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not.